Jürgen Prochnow. Jürgen Prochnow. Is it Jürgen Prochnow? I think it's Jürgen Prochnow, the German actor. This is who Danny Röhl's reminding me of. Jürgen Prochnow. I'm going to declare an interest straight away. Yes, he was in a Michael Mann film. It's The Keep, not one of Michael Mann's best, but I don't know if you've seen that scene in The Sopranos. Probably the funniest scene in the entire series, all series of The Sopranos, where Christopher Moltisanti is outside a premiere, and it's supposed to be Martin Scorsese that's walking into the premiere and he's shouting, Marty, Kunden, I liked it. No, and I think that'd be exactly the same when it came to Michael Mann. Hey, Michael, The Keep, I liked it. Tangerine Dream, doing the music for that one, the same as he did for Thief. But we're not here to talk about Michael Mann, we're here to talk about Jürgen Prochnow, who also appeared in David Lynch's film The Fire Walk With Me, which is just one of the greatest things in art, never mind one of the greatest films ever made. Fire Walk With Me, Twin Peaks next. Phenomenal. We're not here to talk about David Lynch or Michael Mann, we're here to talk about Jürgen Prochnow, and that's how I think Danny Röhl looks at him, and maybe it's because Danny Röhl was in that press conference tonight in Norway, and he's wearing the hoodie. He's not got the brogues on, probably. Oh, the brogues. He's not got the tie and the blazer and that on. He's just wearing the black hoodie with the big Umbro diamond on it and the Rangers scroll crest, and he's looking the part, and it's reminding me of Jürgen Prochnow, who's still in the go. He's in his 80s. I didn't actually realise he was that old. That's why in 1981, when Das Boot came out, German television, German cinema, Das Boot, the submarine crew, the U-boat crew in the Second World War, and he's playing the old guy, the commander, the captain of the ship, the captain of the ship that's underwater, but not necessarily mean it's losing if it's underwater, but the particular scene I remember, and I'll be remembering it wrong, I'll certainly be getting the German wrong, it's when he's sitting in his cabin and he's got his second in command next to him, and I don't know if he's just made them do something. He's led them into danger as far as he's concerned, unnecessary danger. His whole crew, this bunch of Schalke 04 supporters, because they're not from Munich, they're not from Bavaria, these aren't the Nazis, these are just ordinary working class guys, they're miners by nature. Schalke 04, Gelsenkirchen, they all come from, and there's a bit in it, famously in Das Boot, where a guy comes in who's been sitting, he should be listening for the enemy coming to bomb them from above, but he's listening to the FITBA back home, and he has to tell them that Schalke has lost the game, and they're devastated, because it's a bad situation they're in already. The last thing they need is to be losing, is for their team to be losing football matches. They maybe get a bit of a right to be as devastated as they were, the crew of Das Boot, when their team, but I used to think it was the championship final. I think sometimes the English translation, the subtitles say they've lost the cup final. It wouldn't be. I think the guy is saying something about the championship game or something. I need to watch it again. I've not seen it for ages, this, but that time, it was at that time, in fact, up until the 60s, of course, up until the mid-60s, basically the Bundesliga didn't exist. It was the German champions were decided by like regional league seasons. Then they had a post-season where they all played off against other. The champions of each region would play off against each other. You get kind of playoffs, and they'd end up playing the big championship final for the Victoria. And Schalke, obviously, the Fritz Schrepan and all these kind of guys, they were really good just in the 30s, but I don't know how good they were in the 40s. I think I've tried to work out what year it actually is that the crew of Das Boot are doing Second World War stuff, and it's just, what a cliche, we've got a German manager, we're supposed to have outgrown this, and I'm talking about Second World War, but it's just a German actor. He's reminding me of a German actor. It's not to do with the war itself, and I'm talking about FITBA here, and they play the Königsblauen, the Royal Blues. I know we call ourselves the Light Blues, but it's the same colour jersey, isn't it? Schalke 04 is Rangers. There's a link there to the football and to Danny Röhl, and I think it's maybe just a playoff. At first, I thought it was the final. I was checking the year that Das Boot is probably set in, and the years that Schalke made the final, the German Championship final. I don't think it aligns, so they've probably lost a kind of playoff match against another regional champion before they could get a chance to make it to the final. But they're gutted anyway when they lose that. But he's sitting there in his cabin with his second in command, sitting in his bunk, and he just realises, I think, mate, is it when he's taking them through the Straits of Gibraltar. It'd be suicide even if there wasn't a war on to be going through the Straits of Gibraltar, but it's the only way he can think to get out of this situation that they're in. And it seems crazy, it seems suicidal, and the crew are like, oh my God, we'll have to trust him, but it looks like he might be going to kill us. And it's Gibraltar. Maybe it's Chermiti scoring against Gibraltar's under 21s. I don't know. There's something going on, and he just goes, "I'm sorry." He sits on his bench. He's a captain. He's got to be strong. He's the old man. He's the alta. He's the guy that they all look up to. He's got to be strong, but in a private moment, he can just let it go, and he just suddenly just, "I'm sorry. I'm just so sorry." It's tut mir leid. Tut mir wirklich leid. Is it tut mir wirklich leid? I think it's different ways of saying I'm very sorry in German. I don't know if I've just made that up. I probably have. My German's absolutely non-existent. But tut mir leid, tut mir wirklich leid. I'm sorry for doing this. And there's also the bit, he's in The English Patient. A very kind of, a very ABC film, The English Patient, despite having the phenomenal screen romance of Rafe Fiennes and Chris and Scott Thomas at their best, the two of them. But Jürgen Prochnow's in that, and he's not even an evil guy in that either. He's an Africa Corps commander or captain or something like that, and they're in the Maghreb, and it's Willem Dafoe's character who realises he's a spy. He's trying to get information out of him, and Willem Dafoe won't give him the information, and it's too warm and a little bit, and he's like, I'm going to have to do something here. I'm going to have to cut off some of your fingers, for my torch. Doesn't know why to do it, but he's kind of stressed, and it's like, it's ein Daumen, mein Finger. Is that what it is? Is a thumb a finger? I don't know the German, but it's something like that. He's saying a wee bit of German, and The English Patient, and he ends up cutting off Willem Dafoe's thumbs, and Willem Dafoe gets him later on. You don't see that happens off screen, but that's Jürgen Prochnow. He's kind of reminding me of Danny Röhl, Jürgen Prochnow. I was just watching him in the presser yesterday as well. Fair enough, he's facing the camera yesterday in the Tuesday press conference, the Tuesday berating, the Tuesday struggle session, where the media lads, fan media, mainstream media, got their pound of flesh out of our CEO and out of our sporting director, but not out of the chairman, who they all love, like Labour prime ministers going weak at the knees when they meet the Queen. He was sitting there, and I thought, I'd said his Rangers TV interview on Monday night, Danny Röhl, he looked a bit mad. Didn't he suit the blazer and tie, really too young. But I think it was the hair. They were filming him for a strange angle, and you could see the back of his hair. He's obviously, it's all been a bit of a rush, so that there's a bit sticking out the back. I'm just jealous because I've not got any hair, and he's got a young man's hair, plenty of it, and it was sticking out at the back there. And but this time he's square on yesterday from that place, sitting in between the guys that the media were really there to see, and it looked good. He looked good in the suit, and I was thinking, a bit of the Jürgen Prochnow's there, our umlaut manager. Don't forget the umlaut. What do you do with the umlaut? Because it's that thing. It's Danny Röhl. Amongst the many things I was getting wrong the other night is, and the last pod I put out welcoming Danny Röhl to Rangers was pronouncing it roll, forgetting about the umlaut, which means you do a wee kind of E after the O-E rule. Dr. Oetke, that's very German, Uli Hoeneß, that very kind of umlauty thing. I think Dr. Oetke is actually Dutch, Dr. Oetke, but it's very sinister name somehow for a pizza company, but they put the Oetke in it, and that's what they do, that German thing, Röhl, and then Röhl, Gerd Müller. You don't really get that in English. We forget to do that. So one thing you can do is you can stick an E after the O, because you're trying to put his name. If, for example, you're doing a podcast and you've got to type stuff onto the podcast, the title of the podcast, got to get the guy's name right, and you're replying to folk and replies who've posted very kindly their opinion on your podcasts. You're halfway typing, you go, oh no, I've got to get the umlaut in there. Can you actually get it via a normal phone? Can you work it on a normal keypad? Can you get the umlaut above something? I don't know how to do it. You kind of press hold and something to get it. If not, you can go and put the E in there. But folk who don't really get what you're doing there, because Gerd Müller, sometimes I've been in love with Gerd Müller my whole life, so I forget about the umlaut and I'll go Gerd Müller, M-U. Obviously, you cut and paste, off the internet with the umlaut. You can do that, but if you forget to do that, you can't be bothered going back into another page to do that. Get the umlaut. You can't get the umlaut, so you just go Gerd M-U-E-L-L-E-R, at least that, because he's no Gerd Müller. He's Gerd Müller. And the U thing, the U doesn't work the same way as it does in English for us, so you need to put the E in there, but folk who don't really understand it would be saying to you, but that's not how, there's no an E in there, there's no an E after the U in Gerd Muller. There's no an E after the O in Danny Rowe. And it reminds me of when I was young, in 1990. I was 21, mind you, so a bit too old to be getting this wrong. I was coming up in 21, and it was the draw for the World Cup in Turin, Italian 90 World Cup, and it was around an exhibition friendly between Italy and Brazil in Bologna. Funnily enough, now that we've got the Scottish captain of Bologna, but they were having a friendly there, and that was around the World Cup draw, and they were interviewing Andy Roxburgh about his attitude to the draw, and he said, I don't know if he was talking about, it must be because we were playing Brazil in Turin, maybe the draw took place in Turin, but he was saying, yes, this game, blah, 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 in Torino, says Andy Roxburgh, and I'm like, saying to my mate, Torino? Torino? He doesn't know that Torino's a Fitbit team for Turin. You know, they're the Fitbit team. It's actually no, the place, the city's called Turin. I mean, it's called not Torino. That means Turin in Italian. So, nobody tell me that. Nobody tell me. So there's folk out there that think they're being clever. They don't spell it like that, but they don't actually understand that you're putting the E in there in place of the umlaut when you're doing it. And I'm trying to avoid talking about the real thing here, folks, because I'm a bit upset with the way things went in the press conference. I'm not really upset about that, but how you doing? This is your fat ek, not very immediate post-struggle session public berating of our sporting director and CEO in between the official unveiling by our chairman of our new head coach reaction pod and segueing into that seamlessly at the end. I'll just tack on at the end. We're off to Norway in the Europa League group stage match day 3, looking for our first point or 3 preview pod coming to you in association with Jersney. Check out Jersney every Friday live 9 p.m, every Sunday live 9:30 p.m. on the Jersney YouTube channel, and available thereafter on all good streaming platforms. I'm coming to you in association with Jersney, and also in association with that. I don't know the name. What's the name of that diner? I keep looking it up and I can't remember it. Big Boys, Billy Big Boys. It's a diner, Billy's Broiler Room or something. Billy Big Boys is a kind of chain of diners. Maybe it's part of the same chain. Is it some sort of Barry's Boiler Room or something? It's a diner in Los Angeles, in California. And I realised for years and years I suspected this, and I never really put it together. I couldn't hold the thought long enough because I'd be getting carried away with the music, as in the case of the Limp Bizkit. Take a look around, the theme tune for Mission Impossible 2, I think it is. I'd be getting carried away with the music and that, and I'd eventually forget. Or it'd be Heat. I'm watching Heat, the scene where they get rid of Waingro. They try to get rid of Waingro. Neil's crew, tries to get rid of Waingro, but it's the same diner. It's the same place. It is the same place. I looked it up, and apparently there's been lots of different things have been shot. It's in Los Angeles, near Hollywood, so of course lots of things have been shot there. Famous films, famous scenes from TV series and stuff like that. But I've just put it together. It's the same diner that the Waingro, when he gets punched by Neil McCauley, it's the greatest punch in cinema history as far as I'm concerned. Not that I've seen all of cinema, so I can't really. I'm talking out my backside there as usual, but. He turns round and he delivers the most realistic punch I've ever seen on screen anyway, and that's De Niro is delivering that punch to Kevin Gage, the Waingro character, who has shot. He's turned it into a murder beef. The last robbery they did, robbing the armoured car, the armoured truck, the security truck from the bearer bonds. They got Waingro in at the last minute to cover, and he's shot a security guard who he didn't need to shoot him at all. He just did it because he had too much to prove. He's a bit of a gangster, and these guys that have got too much to prove are a bit dangerous. Yes, that is linked to Rangers these days. Anyway, and he's. So they want to get rid of him. They make out they're going to pay up. They're going to do the split. Got the split in the back of the car. I'm going to taking it out of my end, taking his split out of my end evenly, because I want to pay up and get rid of this rat mother funster as quickly as possible. So De Niro goes in, Neil McCauley goes into the diner, and he just bangs Waingro's head off the table and off a kind of just near the window as well. But that's he thinks that's what he's going to get. That's the worst he's going to get. But we take him outside. That's going to put him. That's going to put a few bullets in him and stick him in the trunk of the car and go and bury his body somewhere. So in order to do that, when they're leaving the diner, De Niro wheels round and punches him in the gut. It's the most realistic punch in cinema history because De Niro, of course, is part of his Lee Strasberg Actors Studio Stanislavski thing, actually get trained as a professional boxer by Jake LaMotta, the guy he wanted to play as realistically as possible in Raging Bull. So De Niro, he's in his mid-50s by the time he does Heat, but he just turns Heat, the LA Crime Saga by Michael Mann. Fantastic punch, because it's just a whoomph. It's no kind of kapow type OTT punch. It's more like the stuff that when you lived in the Badlands of the West End of Glasgow, the way I do. Some of the stuff that goes down, it's a realistic, it's just a cold, hard, muffled, thumping, slapping sound more than anything else, and it's just down he goes. But they make an arse of it. But it's the same diner as that Limp Bizkit. Take a look around. Life is just a blast that's moving really fast. You better stay on top, or life will kick you in the ass. Follow me into a solo. My name's Alec Anderson. I'm in love with the German film star I once saw in a bar, sitting in a corner in imperfect clothes, trying not to pose for the cameras and the girls. It's a glamorous world. I'm in love with the German film star I once saw in a movie, playing the part of a real troublemaker, but I didn't care. It really moved me. It really moved me. That's The Passions, a brilliant song by The Passions, been totally insulted by me there. And I wonder if that bit about it really moved me, is a pun on the fact that it was the lead singer of The Passions. She saw this guy who's stunningly good looking, but I think he was a roadie. It really moved me. He's a roadie for The Clash. Was it The Clash? And apparently he was so good looking that he did actually get bit parts in movies, this guy. And she was like, oh my God, this guy's he's a real troublemaker. But that's it. I wonder if that's what that was all about. My name is Alec Anderson, and I'm here to talk to you about the fact, I will eventually talk about the fact that Rangers are going from Austria in the Europa League match day 2 to Norway in Europa League match day 3. And of course, anybody who goes from Austria to Norway immediately makes you think about Wittgenstein, doesn't Ludwig Wittgenstein? And not please, going to know everybody. Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must remain silent. Just please don't say it's such a cliche. It's just, it's like Tommy Cooper and something. Just like that, not like that, just like that. I mean, Wittgenstein did say that, but it's the only thing anybody understands about the philosophy of the guy who solved all philosophy and then decided he hadn't really. But he went to Norway to concentrate. Wittgenstein, he's from Vienna. He went from, did he go for Cambridge? Actually, I can't remember. But the great thing of Wittgenstein is I just always remember reading that bit about him. He's just probably the greatest mind of all time. And he went to Norway to concentrate. He got a hut built for him. I think it's at the end of a particularly scenic fjord. I'm not making this up. And he just stayed. He just put himself in that hut to concentrate. He wanted to improve his concentration, just to get his focus, so he could think more phenomenal, mind-blowing philosophical thoughts, which did eventually blow his mind. Really, he was a primary school teacher as well, I think, and he would beat up the Wains in Norway, even by the standards of the day, when a bit of kind of discipline was, a bit of physical abuse of the Wains was all right, as long as we were just kind of knocking them into line. There was nothing dodgy, but that was just seen as being standard. He took it too far, and he ended up, I think, hunting them from Norway. But that's the thing, just a genius going to Norway from Austria. Well, we didn't have the genius in Austria, but hopefully by the time we get to Norway, we're going to refocus. When we go to Norway, you can't say whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must remain silent every time you mention Wittgenstein, because it's right up there with 25-8. But 25-8, there's no even, you can't do anything for 24 hours, 7 days a week. You die. You need rest. You physically cannot. It's right up there with 200%. Nobody gives 100%. You can't give 100%, or you would die. That's giving 100%. It's actually useless if you give 100%. That's OTT. But 200%, it's just impossible. 100% is impossible, but 200% is definitely impossible. Even conceptually, it's a pathetic thing to say. But I did go to, actually, when I went to see Sheffield Wednesday, that's the other link. The time I went to see Sheffield Wednesday, it was the third time I'd been to Hillsborough, it was the first time I'd seen Sheffield Wednesday there. On the way back, there's a flyaway you can go back to Glasgow from Sheffield, and you can go via, it's like Matlock, you can go near the county town, or the market town of Matlock, and just in the wee back roads up from that, there's a kind of hotel, one of the kind of in a moors type hotel. You would get it in a Jane Austen novel thing, just out of town. It's like a big farmhouse, basically, but it's got a bar and all that these days. And Wittgenstein stayed there when he was working at the University of Manchester. He did all sorts of things before realising he was just a straight-out genius. He tried his hand at everything so he wouldn't kill himself like most of his siblings, keep his mind occupied. But while working at the University of Manchester, he went and stayed in this hotel in Matlock, which is still there. And I went in my way back from Hillsborough, and I went in and I had a pint. I just had one pint, a pint of Varstein, and it was a Varsteiner, Wittgenstein, and I had something to eat as well. But I was so tempted just to go, listen, just going to geese a room for the night, mate. And just sit and drink Varsteiner all night while thinking about Wittgenstein, just concentrating, thinking great thoughts about Ludwig Wittgenstein. But the best thing I could come up with was there was a sign outside that said logs. There's logs for sale. I'll put it up on my Facebook. I've got it on my Facebook page. I'll try and put it on my Blue Sky so you can have a look at that, because I'm not lying to you. And actually, the Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. It was the best I could manage in a Wittgenstein joke, but it's still better than whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must remain silent, because nobody was remaining silent yesterday, were they? No one was remaining silent on Tuesday in the press conference, the awful, awful atmosphere of that press conference, where Danny Röhl was supposed to be getting unveiled. Danny Röhl was supposed to be getting unveiled as Rangers' new head coach, and he was. It did happen, and I'll try and focus on that and just the kind of stuff you would ask and discuss when it comes to a new head coach taking over. But there was a second part to that press conference. It was embargoed press-wise, didn't come out until today, until Wednesday, where it was Danny Röhl wasn't there. It was just our chairman, our chief executive, and our sporting director, and they were there to kind of stick up for mistakes, real and perceived, or to answer for them. So it was offered. It's been a hell of a lot of stuff. And then you get actual Rangers putting out their own official interviews with Danny Röhl, with Kevin Thelwell, with Andrew Cavenagh. Maybe there's one there for Patrick Stewart as well. If it is, I haven't heard. It's difficult to keep up with all the stuff that's getting put out there and all the things you can read into it, but almost getting lost amongst it all is that we've got a new head coach. I was talking the other night about how I'm an influencer. I've decided that I am a major influencer. Not a Rangers podcast. I'm a podcaster who supports Rangers and do pods that just happen to talk about Rangers quite a lot. But I've decided I'm definitely the fattest influencer there is. I was talking about how when I was in Skye on holiday last week, the week in a cottage that we stayed in had a guest book, and I looked up the guest book, and in July, the very month that he left Sheffield Wednesday, in July this year, one of the previous guests in there was from Zwickau, the actual city in Saxony, in Germany, that he was born, and Danny Röhl was born. And this was the day, I think, that it'd been announced that he'd withdrawn from the process of becoming Rangers head coach. But it was just, that's there, yeah, he's definitely, it's in the stars. It was fated. That was me that kind of made that. I forgot when I was telling you that nonsense in my last podcast. It's a snagging list, really. I'm dealing with here with the last podcast. The night that we knew Danny Röhl would be our manager, Monday night, I forgot that I was actually in Berlin. I was staying in a hotel right next to the Friedrichstrasse Bahnhof in the old East Berlin. And he's from the East. He was born 6.5 months before the Berlin Wall came down in Zwickau, which was East Germany, then the old DDR. That's where I went on my holiday in the summer. And I was also on holiday in a wee tiny village called Carlton in Cleveland. I went for a week, after we come back, we went for a week in a wee a wee holiday, like a caravan park basically down there, just to do a bit of touring down in England. And you go through Middlesbrough to get, so that's for some reason I got lost going through Middlesbrough, which I've never done before, going through it so many times. It was kind of outside Darlington more than it. No, it was Middlesbrough. I went through Darlington, then you go through Middlesbrough, don't you? It's kind of in Cleveland, and yeah, it was in Teesside, and so we didn't get Michael Carrick. I think I'm definitely some sort of influencer. And what I forgot to tell you as well, I've probably told you this before. You guys, gained a few more subscribers, and this is kind of part of that will definitely get rid of these, get everybody unsubscribing. As I don't know why I don't talk about this every single day I'm alive, but for 4 years when I would get married while I was in this flat, my girlfriend then, my wife now, we'd been at uni, Glasgow Uni, and we'd had our separate, our digs were pals and that, and then we realised, let's move in together. Just as we were leaving uni, we moved in together, and the flat we got was in the leafy West End, just up off Observatory Road. I mean, Alistair Gray used to live in the corner. You just pass Alistair Gray as he was sitting at his desk, like drawing stuff and all that. It was quite mental. And the only reason we got this flat, just a one-bedroom flat, tiny wee kitchen, bathroom, one bedroom, and that. The only reason we got it was because it was so old that the heating, the big radiator they had, was controlled by the landlord. You know, it had been badly split up, the building, and it was really old, kind of old Victorian villa thing, split up into all these wee flats. So we couldn't control when the heating come on and off. It was just down to the landlord, the flat that he had. He decided when everybody was going to be roasting or not. So you had to sometimes open the windows to let the heat out, and other times you were shutting all the windows because there was no heat. No, it was quite weird that we had an electric fire in front of obviously what had been the old fireplace. But it was one day I found I was talking to the landlord, and I found out he's like, "You into football?" Well, Willie Waddle. You stay in the flat that Willie Waddle used to stay in. Apparently Willie Waddle split up for his wife. I don't know if they had a separation or whatever, or it was closer to Ibrox for him, and it was for Lanarkshire, Willie Waddle. I don't know what the situation was there, but he had this because it was such a wee flat. It was just for him because you could just walk down the road and you're on the underground, and that'd be you you're on the Hillhead Underground, short trip out to Ibrox, and this is where Willie Waddle used to stay in the actual flat. And while I was in there, I was doing half of, I was writing my half of Barcelona Here We Come, a wee book that myself and Ronnie Esplin wrote, and I was to get in touch with John Gregg. And John, this is what, 99, 2000? About 2001, because I did it for 2000. Anyway, long story short, I phoned John Gregg. He wasn't around, but I left a message in his answer service, and he phoned me back, and it was like answering machine. We still had an answering machine then, and he left a message for me on the answering machine. So I'm sitting in the flat that Willie Waddle used to stay in. There's a picture of Willie Waddle sitting at a fireplace. It's an old coal fireplace with the newspapers. It's one of the ones where it's the manager looking at the newspaper headline, and I can't remember what the headline actually is, but it's obviously Derby Rangers being brilliant or him having the job or something like that as Rangers manager. But he's sitting at this fire, and it's like, that's your flat. That's a flat I stayed in for 4 years, without realising for about 2 of the years that it was Willie Waddle's old flat. That's the same fireplace that we've got the electric fire in front of now. And John Gregg phoned me at that flat. That's a true story. Quite incredible. Imagine I'd supported Celtic or something like that. I mean, just totally random. Totally random that we got that flat. Knew nothing about it when we moved in. But that's I'm definitely an influencer. I don't know what that's maybe where I got the power of influence. And then Robert, Celtic fan who gets in touch, great posts in this podcast of ours. He was talking today about Roy Aitken. He was mentioning something about Roy Aitken. I thought, my gran. In fact, my grand's sister, my great auntie, before her, in her Drawson, Roy Aitken. It was Roy Aitken's mum and dad's house. The house that Roy Aitken was born in or grew up in. I think it was through the council house. My great auntie got that house, and after my cousins and all that, she was kind of young, and then after that, my gran got it. So I was in that house for 20, 30 years after Roy Aitken. I don't know what that means in terms of my influencing. But it's Roy Aitken won plenty of things with Celtic. Do we love him? Do we hate him? I don't know. Was that a bad influence? I don't. But it's quite incredible the stuff that happened. You think just the sheer coincidence stuff. But my gran is the reason I support Rangers. She's just, I don't know. She probably didn't go to a single Rangers game in her entire life, but she was the kind of the fountainhead when it came to the Rangers side of our family. It's really weird. So this is me really trying to avoid talking, because I'm going to get a bit angry, probably say stuff that sounds a bit bitter when it comes to the presser yesterday. But that's my snagging. So you get the pronunciation of roll. I was using it the other night, roll, for all the puns. Roll with rock and roll star, all that kind of. That's been doing the rounds all over. But we realised, of course, it's Danny Röhl. So it's not going to be Röhl Britannia or Danny Rules the Waves or Daniel Röhl Röhl. It's difficult to know if the mocking, insulting stuff is going to be used first by Rangers supporters or by Celtic fans. Oh, we love Danny Röhl just now, don't we? We love him just now. I will love him continuously, the same as I did with Russell Martin, because he's a Rangers head coach, so we'll get on board with him. But it's just difficult. The way we were treating our own employees, our own directors, it's difficult to know who's going to get in there first with the insult series. As well to know what they're all going to be. And another thing on the snagging list, Jerry Neef. I didn't mention Gerhard Neef, who was on the bench for Rangers, a substitute goalkeeper in the 1972 Cup Winners' Cup final in Barcelona, because somebody got in touch to say, oh, you've mentioned that list you were rhyming after all the Germans that had been at Rangers, Jörg Alberts and Christian Nellinger and Stefan Kloster. Did you forget about Jenny? I didn't say it was a comprehensive list, No, I didn't. I totally forgot. It's in that book I did that was the Cup Winners' Cup final. I'm boasting about in the book about the Cup Winners, and I forgot Jerry Neef, who was part of it. But there must be other Germans that have been at Rangers. I'm just no thinking properly. The mind's no focused on it. I mean, Malik Tillman was kind of half German, wasn't he? He played for Germany at all the youth levels and then went back to playing for the USA. Leon Balogun is German as he was Nigerian. I think he was born in Germany, wasn't he? He was born in Berlin, I think, Leon Balogun. Why, he's just the coolest guy. That's borderline racing it, always a black guy, so to be cool. But he's just phenomenal. He's a lovely fella, Leon Balogun. Chilled, is it? No, again, it's another, it's difficult. He really was phenomenal, Leon Balogun, just a lovely fella. But he was kind of Nigerian international. He went with Nigeria, but also pretty German as well in his outlook. I called Russell Martin an Anglo. That's right, kids. That's an Anglo. That's when I was a lad. It was a Scottish international who played in England. You'd call them an Anglo. It might sound like I meant he was English. I mean, he's because I was talking about the Anglo-Saxon thing. We've got a guy from Saxony now, and we've had an Anglo before that, but I think I was meaning he was English, because he does obviously sounds English. I think I slipped up. But Russell Martin, of course, a Scotland international, but I might have covered myself by just sticking to the word Anglo, and the lack of synchronicity of the podcast right from the start. I've rabbited on so much already. This one hasn't even really started yet. Maybe it's already out of sync. Oh my God. The other night, it was horrific. It was so out of sync from the very. It did a thing right at the beginning where it kind of stuck. It froze the film, and it was out of sync. Like my mouth, the garbage coming out of my mouth was completely out of sync audibly with the visuals of my horrible mouth moving around. So apologies for anybody who puts himself through the trauma of actually watching my pods instead of the sufficient trauma on its own of listening to them. Okay. Yeah, 25-8. That was awful. Derek of Rangers Review was commenting on that. We never want to hear Mr. Thelwell using the phrase 25-8 ever again. The press of the other day, it was a rose between two thorns, and the chairman was Danny Röhl. Finally, the press had a chance to kind of hound Stewart and Thelwell in front of their boss too. Awful atmosphere, but we're all allowed to be optimistic now, apparently. After a wee sea change now that the boys have had their pound of flesh, and they're kind of stuck. The chairman was good, wasn't he? Quite like the chairman. He's got that light blue tie on. That's kind. They're all impressed by Andrew Cavenagh, and they're now kind of. It's okay to get back behind Danny Röhl. It's as if they've realised suddenly the stuff I've been saying. And nobody listens to my podcast. I know, and I'm wrong about more things than I ever write about when it comes to Rangers. But I'm just passing on my point of view, my opinions, in case anybody out there shares them and feels all alone, as it would be easy to do these days. I feel as if it was always going to be okay. These guys come in and spent like 95 million over the course of a summer, getting a hold of Rangers and starting a reboot of the squad. I thought we're probably going to be okay under these guys. It's going to be all right. This is the moment we were waiting for, having this kind of money injected into us again. It would have taken another, God knows how long. I was predicting 2032. 20 years, a generation between what happened is in 2012 and us being fully back to that point of winning and retaining league titles. And when these guys come in with the money, I thought I'd put out a podcast when they took over, just saying, okay, we don't know these guys. They're going to leave us one day. What kind of state are they going to leave us in? Urging caution. Just to drink it in, just to digest the bad stuff first, so we could then, because in every other aspect, it's what we wanted. It's the dream come true. It's the end of the road. The ultimate end of the road. The sitting down and resting at the end of the road will be when we're winning all those trophies again. when we're retaining league titles and winning trebles and things like that. But the end of the effort, the end is in sight. You're just walking around the corner. You've got in the front door. You're just ready to take your shoes off and hit that sofa. At this moment in time, we are at that front door. We're there when these guys come in with that amount of money. So I was never worried. If Russell Martin didn't work out, they're going to get rid of him. If Thelwell and Stewart don't work out, we're going to get rid of them. And I think that's the hypocrisy for me of this attitude of like the toxicity towards Russell Martin and then to Stewart and Thelwell. Accountability, absolutely need it. Scrutiny, we absolutely need it. But I feel as if there's been a slight encouragement almost of a really, at times, sinister attitude towards these guys that we need to be hunting somebody almost for the sake of fans or fan groups or, I don't know, fan media or whatever, proving that it can still hunt somebody, that it has that ability. The fact that they stop at Cavenagh, they stop at Marathe. I think I've seen about 2 tweets, comments ever saying, these new owners, we should get rid of them. Everybody knows that's the last thing we need to do. And I find that the fact that Marathe and Cavenagh employ Stewart, they employ Thelwell, but yet they're coming in for no hounding whatsoever. I feel it proves the point that we're just unloading this level and nature of abuse at Russell Martin and then Thelwell and Stewart, because we need to just prove that we can almost. I don't know. It's there's something about it. There's definitely something about it that just doesn't ring true. At least nobody yesterday asked Danny Röhl what school he went to, but that's a thing. This is the one time I actually wanted that to happen. What school did you go to? Because he comes from Saxony. He's a German. It's our first German manager. Martin Luther, 15-17, the 95 theses. He's only had 3 or 4 theses yesterday, Danny Röhl. He's no nailed them to the double doors of the church of the Scottish football just yet, but he's from that's worth exploring, isn't it? It's like if somebody called Walfred or a Cistercian monk or whatever Brother Walfred was came and suddenly started working in Celtic's board, there'd be a connection. That'd be something interesting. It'd be quite significant, wouldn't it, in terms of history? So this is our first German, and Protestantism starts with Martin Luther in Wittenberg, which is in Saxony-Anhalt, which is next door to Saxony, which is where Danny Röhl is from. So I would quite like to know, is he a full-blown Lutheran? He's a proper, he's from the actual heartland. This should be just mildly interesting, but we're not interested in that. Neither are we interested in any kind of positivity at all. There was nobody saying, we think, you seem to be, we want you to succeed. Thelwell and Stewart, we want you to do well. We want to, we think you could do it. Maybe just do this a bit. Can you just explain that? There's no tone of, that was a bit weird. Why did you do that? Because obviously you've got major financial backing, you've got decent backgrounds, you seem to know what you're doing a lot. It's just like, you've got to go. Why? They got one appointment. They got the first appointment rang. They're just in the door. It's obviously going to take a while to settle in. I don't know. They rectified it in 123 days, which only featured 17 games. So there was a wee welcome for Danny Röhl, where we had the photographs afterwards, obviously out in the main stand, looking out over the pitch with the big Rangers FC and the kind of soffit of the Govan, the Sandy Jardine stand behind them, the bar scarf, that was fine. But the actual moment where Andrew Cavenagh does his wee welcome bit and he turns round to Danny Röhl, who's sitting next to him, I just want to say, Danny, welcome to Rangers, and he gives the wee handshake. It's funny how that actually now looks more fake than, when you see them kind of holding hands, almost like shake hands, and then smiling to the cameras, like just keep shaking his hand, which is totally fake for the cameras. But an actual real handshake, I'm just going to shake his hand right in front of you all to welcome to the club. It seems more fake now. What's been the worst of presentations of Rangers managers? I don't really remember many of them. Mark Warburton tried to walk in the wrong door in the blue room for the presser. That was pretty bad. He got off to a great start after that, football wise. Mark Warburton, maybe it was a sign of how he was going to end up leaving the club, just getting it completely wrong. But there was also Graham Souness. There was a slight delay when David Holmes announced Rangers, ladies and gentlemen, new manager Rangers Football Club. Graham Souness, a wee slight delay before he actually comes in the door. Souness. And I think, is this a wind? Has it been a big wind-up? And he comes, oh my God, it's real. That was super dramatic. That was very showbiz. Stevie G, absolutely electric presser. You know, he nearly jumped into the enclosure after it as well, and he was just going to crowd surf with the punters in the West enclosure that were all there for him. But he's in that press. He was just batting the questions away, and he's like, "What would you say to the Rangers supporters? Let's go!" Oh my, it's just fantastic quote. That is all psyched out with skull, and that gave it the momentum that 3 years later really paid off. It paid off instantly when it came to the European stuff, which we're still getting the benefit of these days. Danny Röhl maintaining his will to live, far less any kind of enthusiasm. He was very enthusiastic, Danny Röhl. Very believable fella. Very encouraging, but actually managing to maintain his will to live during that kind of miasma of misery yesterday was quite an achievement by him. Hair off, in terms of a hair off, I think he's more Stevie G. You know, Stevie G now is like 10 years his senior. He's still got a good mop on him, Steven Gerrard, but it's a barnet, isn't it? It's up there. It's almost out of control, but we like that. We like that with the big, it's sitting in the top like that. A kind of edifice, just sitting right in the top of his head, the hair, and sticking out a bit at the back because it's kind of out of control, even though it's tidy. Very Steven Gerrard, kind of square almost. Oh, we didn't like Russell Martin, did he? He had fantastic hair for a man who's a few years older, hitting 40 shortly, Russell Martin. But we don't like his the curtains that he's got going on up there. That was horrific. Apparently we just didn't like his politics, did we? And we certainly didn't like his what he was doing with the team. But Philip Clement can just step aside. He can not get himself involved in that one. But I think it's good hair that Danny Röhl's got there, and that's one of the things very positive about yesterday. He likes a tricolon, doesn't he? Andrew Cavenagh likes a tricolon. That kind of rhetorical device that was used to greatest effect by Barack Obama. Danny Röhl is confident, he's technical, and he's got a little bit of edge to him. He's confident, bang, technical, bang, little bit of edge to him. And just hitting the threes. It's got more impact that way. It's a failure. They did fail. The board have failed because they had to get rid of Russell Martin so quickly. They picked the wrong guy. And what's his attitude to failure? Andrew Cavenagh, what you got to do with a failure is you've got to acknowledge it, you've got to own it, you've got to rectify it. Bang, bang, bang. Tricolon. Whap that out there. Bish, bash, and bosh. They've acknowledged it. That's the sacking of Russell Martin. They've owned it. That was basically the email they put out to everybody saying that was their fault, that picking Russell Martin, and they've rectified it by getting Danny Röhl in there. Bish, bash, bosh, wham, fantastic. What was the other tricolor? We remain incredibly optimistic about this club. We don't think we've got the best out of this squad yet, and we look forward to seeing what Danny Röhl can get out of this squad. Bish, bash, bosh, tricolon. Hitting it there, hitting it hard was Andrew Cavenagh yesterday, who came across very well, very impressive, or just a total smarmy American businessman, like a guy who will let people die because they don't have the insurance cover. It's difficult to know what way to gauge it, but in terms of running Rangers, in terms of what we seem to be looking for as a support, the collective, the hive mind, Andrew Cavenagh, definitely very impressive, and he certainly had a lot of the press boys who were there to tear strips off somebody, to ask the questions that the fans want asked. They're doing it as a service. What else are they supposed to do? They definitely were impressed by Andrew Cavenagh. It was only Thelwell and Stewart that they were kind of having a go at later. I think it was just Patrick Stewart's, but yeah. I wonder if this thing has got a bit of an edge to him. I wonder if he realised that Andrew Cavenagh, when last week, obviously when he withdrew from the process, was that Danny Röhl finding out that they were talking to after it looked like Steven Gerrard that was pulling out. Then he told him they were going to look at Kevin Muscat. They were inquiring after Kevin Muscat. He just told him to shove it up their collective chuffs. No, listen, Danny, we're just going to explore other options. Explore this, you fanny. I said I wanted my players to hunt. Well, you're a hunt, mate. Yeah, get it fucking round. You went, this guy's got an edge to him. I like it. He understands our fans. I like him. Let's get in there. He likes a colourful phrase as well. Does Andrew Cavenagh, our chairman? The lights shone brighter in Glasgow. The lights shone brighter in Glasgow. This was part of him. The lights are brighter. The way I phrase it is the lights are brighter in Glasgow, and that was him trying to dim the kind of idea that the Rangers support are fucking mental, because that's basically what they were trying to say. We realised you guys were, passionate. Didn't realise that meant you were absolutely mental, the lot of yous. This has just been utterly mental. Kevin Thelwell was talking about how the thing we've heard so many people saying when they arrive at Rangers. I knew from the outside this was a big club, but it's not until you get in. Is it not until you actually start working for us that you don't realise how big we're until you start? I've never heard that before, Kevin. But fair enough. I think he's explaining himself. Honestly, that was their way of saying what they have got wrong. It's the appointment of Russell Martin, but they've also got wrong. I think they've just thought, no, this will be. I touched the Martin Warburtons. Remember Martin Warburton when we got us up into the top flight, and then by February we're like, no, this isn't happening. We look like a team that's been in the lower leagues for 4 years. And Mark Warburton's gone, well, you have been. No, you're not allowed to say it, Mark. See ye. Classic mistake. I think they may have been thinking Thelwell, Stewart, and through Cavenagh and Marathe. These guys have been shit for the last 14 years. They'll welcome us like gods because we're going to rebuild the actual board. That place is a fucking disaster. It's falling to pieces. They weren't even in their own stadium last season. They couldn't get a basic bit of export right from the Far East of steel. Their CEO is leaving them. They're getting, some guy. He's a scout and he's also the head of recruitment, and I think he might be their manager as well. These guys are going to love us. Nope, you made a mistake. We're going to hunt you, even though you're obviously our saviours at this point in time when nobody else actually wants to save us. So I think they've realised we're utterly crazy. You can see in their slight kind of they're not caught in the headlights, but they're getting over the fact that they have been caught in the headlights. They've been stunned by just how toxic it's been, really. And it's something that we asked about yesterday as well. And the thing that they did really well, all three of them, was not in any way to criticise the supporters, which is quite a thing from Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell, considering the shit that's been thrown at them. I know they get paid well and all that, and I know we've had so many cowboys in the club over the years. If they don't do the job, if Danny Röhl's a failure, they will go. They will both be sacked or resign or both, whatever. But I think they did well to have no residual bitterness at the way because it really is heavy duty stuff that's been aimed at them. The big thing that we're dealing with yesterday was that Danny Röhl, third choice. Is he the third choice? It's a disaster for you. The recruitment process. We thought you were going to get Steven Gerrard. Then that fell through. Danny Röhl looked like he was going to be manager. Then that fell through. He withdrew. Then it was going to be Kevin Muscat. Then that fell through. Now you're back to Danny Röhl. How can this be? But Danny Röhl himself, I was asked about this first, and he had a great one-liner which he couldn't really deliver because his English isn't perfect, and I say that as someone whose German is utterly insulting to Germany, to all Teutons. But he had a great one. It didn't really follow through in the English, but clearly he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's there because he's in the job. He is the first choice as far as he's concerned. Was basically what he was saying. So he's too young. He's too excited. He's just too excited to have enough money for kind of sweets and a bit of Coca-Cola and all that. I mean, he's already probably got a lifetime supply of Red Bull. So, but Andrew Cavenagh, Kevin and Paddy did well in explaining it all away. They can't say kind of out of professional discretion what went on in their negotiations with other candidates. And the word briefing was mentioned about how other candidates will brief. I don't know if that was a go at Stevie G, or Steven Gerrard. Maybe he's briefed against them in the press. But Andrew Cavenagh was sure that the recruitment process, the kind of buying of players, and Kevin Thelwell's involvement in it was not the problem. We just decided, that's the thing for me, everybody decided last Saturday night when it fell through, the Gerrard deal fell through, went straight to fucking Thelwell, but no idea what had actually happened. No idea whatsoever. It was timing. It was bad timing. I said Steven Gerrard is a guy who hasn't worked in football for the last 7 or 8 months. So if anybody was going to have a second thoughts, it would probably be him. But maybe it'll turn out. Maybe it'll come out in the wash and it was Kevin Thelwell's fault. But we're not having that just now, according to the chairman. So he had to again reiterate that he's never yet bought a player, Kevin Thelwell. He's never yet bought a player his head coach didn't want. It's like, we don't like this director of football thing. We don't like it. We don't want this sporting director thing, whereas it's something we moaned about needing when we didn't have one. I don't know. But I don't know what's going on. I'm not an influencer, obviously. There's just somebody passing their opinion. Take it however you want, but I find it kind of puzzling. There seems to be a desperation. There's plenty of things to really moan about at Rangers, but I feel as if it's almost a confusion, a societal thing where we're treating politics like football. We should be treating football like politics, and I don't think there's that great a need for it anymore. There's always a need for scrutiny. You've got to look at what's happened to us in the past with owners, but my God, I feel as if there's a... Stop it, Alex, stop it. He had to reiterate again that he's never bought a player his head coach didn't want, Kevin Thelwell, and his nephew, Youssef Chermiti, was going to be a star. I'll show the lot of you I'm going to be a star. Mark Dingwall, follow, the man himself, he was there yesterday at the presser, and he's asked, and I think this sums it up for me, that really, never mind all my personal angle and being a bit irate. I'm not irate, it's a really weird feeling when what you've been saying for like 4 months suddenly comes to be official kind of fan policy, almost. Oh, sorry, we had a wee go at them yesterday. That's fine. Now we can be optimistic now. I've been optimistic all season about how it's going to go eventually. But Mark Dingwall asked the question, which had already been touched on by somebody else. I think it was Michael Grant of the Times had put it to Kevin Thelwell about the employment of his son as head of recruitment, which that's the kind of thing you do need scrutiny for. Don't get me. I'm not saying we shouldn't be going there and asking the hard questions. It's just the nature of the ask. It's the culture just now. There's a mood just now that we need a pound of flesh for the sake of a pound of flesh, rather than just being more surgical about who we're needing to get rid of, because things are generally going really well. Are looking good. And not on the part just now, obviously, but hopefully that's going to sort itself out now. But I think just in terms of the level of investment that people have got in the board, there's data analysis, the fact that they've got this history and this experience through sports, with their involvement with the 49ers as well. What they did at Leeds United kind of speaks for itself too. I just feel as if everyone's going to be fine. But how Mark phrased it as, how was he able to get that past the chief executive and the board? I thought it was brilliant. I'm not laughing. I'll never mess with follow. They're the guys, and Mark's the man. But how was he able to get that past the chief executive and the board? Getting his son into a job, and that is asking the questions that the fans, and it's asking it how the fans are asking. That's the stuff you're seeing on Twitter, or X, whatever it's called. That's what you see. The fans say, "How the fuck was he able to get that past it? That's a total con man. Now, how does that look? How's he managed it?" So he's asking. Mark Dingwall's getting as close as he can to the kind of online tenor of the fan, genuine concern how it looks. I was never bothered by it, because I just thought, well, what the man himself said. Andrew Cavenagh goes in there straight away and he says there's no getting it past, using that phrase. You're not getting it wasn't. I'm not having that phrase. He wasn't getting it past us. It was incredibly transparent, the whole move to apply. And then Thelwell himself, who was quite good, I think, in explaining that his son, he wasn't the guy that wanted to appoint him. I don't know about that. Dan Purdy, who's his kind of second in command, was the guy who wanted to appoint his son as head of recruitment. But the point that I always felt would be most applicable to this was that we need to get in people. It's the infrastructure of the club needs completely rebuilt, especially at an executive level. It's a bit of an emergency. It's like, as I was saying before, it's like a lintel's collapsing and you need to get the struts in, and there's a guy up the road. Who's got a big truck, a flatbed truck full of the metal strut things that you put in to hold up basically a building that's collapsing. It doesn't matter that he's not the best in the business. He's handy. He's right there, and that's what you need just now. I think that's what Rangers need. That's why we're a lot of guys for Everton turning up, because our sporting director has been at Everton. A lot of guys for English football. He said that himself a few months ago, Kevin Thelwell. It's just a market I know really well. They're trying to say, this place is a fucking disaster. We need to just get it sorted out. We need to get the bodies in first. We need to get the people in to fill the positions, to establish the positions. There's so many new roles being created, and we're actually going to worry about the quality of the people we're getting in the role secondary, because you've got to, they're doing this thing structurally. So I feel as if the way he answered the question was he's basically just saying he's handy and he's really good, and they knew how it would look. So obviously they're not going to run this past a guy who runs a health insurance company. With it, if he found out about that, if that had been done without his knowledge, he would have get rid of them straight away. So yeah, and I think they know the level of scrutiny. I think they knew by that point the level of scrutiny they were under at Rangers as well. So I think Mark has done well to ask that question and to ask it the way it was being asked by supporters. But it was really good. Cavenagh got a bit animated, so he's got a bit of an edge to him as well. I think has Andrew Cavenagh and that whole thing about I'll phrase it as that the lights are brighter in Glasgow. Like, you might know that Rangers are massive, but my God, you don't know how mental their supporters are until you get up here. Gegenpress, Govenpress, just impressed because we're depressed and need a rest from being stressed. I thought that the miracle is on. Das Wunder von Bern, Das Wunder von Dan. I thought Danny Röhl was very impressive in his presser, just full of enthusiasm, genuine kind of enthusiasm, come across really well. What is it we actually expect from him? What do we expect? We're not a chance to ask. What are we expecting from our new head coach, our new gaffer? It's a question that was continually put to everybody at the massive press conference yesterday at Ibrox, and again the board did well to say, well, Danny Röhl's great at saying it's one game at a time, focusing on the next game, focusing on Thursday. So they're saying, let's just see how this goes. They're not going to get nailed down. They're not going to get themselves into trouble, dig a hole for themselves by naming targets at this point in time. But Clement got us back into a league race when he turned up when he took over in October of 2 years ago, and he was slaughtered for losing that league. I remember he was doing brilliantly. New manager Bounce, and he comes in. He loses his first game at Parkhead, and then he recovers from that straight away, wins the next game against Kilmarnock, going to the winter break, and then he gets us back up February into March. We go top of the table, a great run of form. And I remember standing outside Ibrox doing a post-match reaction saying, can we just, the fact that we've got ourselves back to the top of the table, can we just say this manager's good, he knows what he's doing, let's no lose our shit if he doesn't actually win the league now. To recover from being so far behind, it's to get to the point where you're back top of the table. But no, it was merciless. It's like he's not won the league, he's chucked it, that's it. So I don't know if we're going to go back now to the old routine of new manager Bounce for 2 or 3 months and then you get the drop off. That's why I actually kind of weirdly, enjoyed. I didn't enjoy it, but I felt there was something happening. But Russell Martin failing straight away, it felt more kind of honest. Maybe that's depression talking. But I want to get to the bit where the manager faces the legacy malaise. Luckily if it's just going to be new manager Bounce with Danny Röhl, we'll leave him within that. It usually lasts for a couple of months, so we could have won the League Cup by the time it finishes, that new manager Bounce, which would necessarily include a first Hampden win over Celtic in 9.5 years and about 300 attempts, beating him at Hampden since that Scottish Cup semi-final in 2016, and it would mean a major trophy. That League Cup in December has been won for a second time since 2012, and that's a psychological barrier which goes way beyond even Cavenagh and Marathe. That's just us winning a second major trophy for the first time since we were in the lower leagues. It would feel that we're getting back to normal. It's not just we've won everything once. But I think we want the treble. We basically want to win. That's what we want, almost, because they were pointing out and his kind of introduction of Danny Röhl, Andrew Cavenagh was pointing out the fact that Rangers are still in 4 competitions. But what do we need this season? We can't even say not to finish the season with the same manager, because that target is already sailed. That's 5 seasons in a row now. If you want to include the Barry Ferguson thing, that felt like a kind of new manager, even though he was just caretaker. It's basically 6 times in the last 5 seasons we've seen this scenario that we're watching yesterday. It was a bit different yesterday, the appointment of the new coach. Let's just try not to go the other way around, and end up with more than, end up with sacking 2 full-time permanent managers in the space of 1 season. Sometimes when you're chasing a target, you get so fixated on it, you get quite close. Oh, we've failed to get through a whole season with the same manager. We've failed to get through a whole season with the same man. Oh, we've failed to get through a whole season with just 2 managers. We're onto 3 a season now, but don't go the other way. But we can still win the league. I don't think there's a doubt about that, really. Our faith in Hearts kind of maintaining is part of our catastrophising, I think. Suddenly it's like, but we did a taste of that last season. Aberdeen are going to win the league. How embarrassing if Aberdeen win the league and it's no us. How embarrassing if Aberdeen finish second and it's no us. And Aberdeen ended up, basically fighting relegation almost. But they did win that Scottish Cup and they're coming back again. They obviously work in fits and starts under Jimmy Telling. But Celtic, I feel Celtic maybe still the same. It's still the same, right? The main rival for us, or maybe all these protests from both Rangers and Celtic supporters are a kind of inverted form of exceptionalism, which presents as kind of gross entitlement, but stems from a deep-seated fear that the old firm will be toppled this season. We deserve to be. It's almost we can see it coming, and as a kind of last hurrah. The main aim, I say, for us is one that no one wants to kind of mention. Under Danny Röhl, I think we might have finished second. I think that would be the acceptable minimum for the board anyway, to finish second. But either or both cups, joined with that, winning either or both cups, allied to a run up the league table, I think would make this with a great start by Röhl, and it would maybe save Thelwell and Stewart. And the fact that it's their faces with the crosses through them, Thelwell and Stewart, Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart, it proves that Cavenagh and Marathe know what they're doing, because they're coming in, they're being liked by me, by even somebody as cynical about businessmen as me, by the media, by the fan media. They're coming, just that whole thing. It used to be Labour Prime Ministers, they said, I was mentioning this earlier, I'm a Labour voter most of my life. Obviously the idea is they're kind of working against the class system. They're supposed to be representing the working class, or those at the bottom of the class system, and you come in and meet the Queen, who's at the very top of it. And for Margaret Thatcher, a Conservative Prime Minister, who was basically seen as kind of working class, certainly in comparison to most of the guys round about her in our cabinet and what have you. But most of the Conservatives were fairly high up, most Conservative PMs and a lot of Labour ones as well, quite high up the class system. So the Queen was just it was the ultra poshel, basically, but it was a milieu in which they were reasonably comfortable, whereas proper working class Labour PMs are supposed to, that's not the enemy. I mean, they're not all Republicans, but that's just somebody, that's the poshest person, and they would all go weak at the knees. And I felt as if there's a bit of that going on with Andrew Cavenagh yesterday. We'll just keep getting into Thelwell and Stewart the same way the Labour Prime Ministers would get into your Eton and Harrow kind of guys who'd become head of corporations or Tory front benchers. But the Queen, but Andrew Cavenagh, oh no, I can't. I'm just quite excited to be in the same room as him. It was quite weird. And the fact that they've allowed that to happen, they've manufactured that, or they've made it happen. They've managed it to the situation to a scenario where they come in and they're just present enough, and they're almost but they've got them as buffers. The button men, they've got them as buffers. Between the old, I'm going to a bit in The Godfather too, never mind. But they've worked it quite well, Cavenagh and Marathe, having these guys in front of them to take the heat. But Danny Röhl, Europe, save Europe. Just save Europe. Danny apparently is European, apparently is a continental, so he should know all about it. He came across in the little chats he was having that were on, I think, Rangers Review, Heart and Hand, but a wee pod as well, wee free pods, a kind of quarter-hour conversation with Danny Röhl, and he came across. He's a pragmatic but exciting chat from him. He said it's not going to be easy at the beginning. There's only so much you can do in a short spell, but we're going to get there. And he was talking about a kind of pragmatic to exciting style that we're going to get under Danny Röhl. At first, you're just going to have to make do and mend, but hopefully later, once you get winning football, then you can do exciting football. This is all stuff that we, as Rangers supporters, all believe. But he seems adaptable, and he seems like he'll get Europe. Europe's the milieu he understands better than it. I've gone on far too long, haven't I? The game's going to be kicking off shortly in Norway. The main takeaway, guys, that was the main takeaway, guys, from that massive press conference yesterday. The board recognise our frustration. They're frustrated too. That was a big theme that came out. There's no specifics about targets for the season, as I was saying, but One journalist was using the term, how can you salvage this season? Is this season salvageable? Quite a leading question, but like Röhl's focus on one game at a time, that's what Cavenagh was. Danny Röhl's focusing on one game. He's only talking about Thursday. He's thinking no further than that. You know, and that's what he was basically saying. We're not going to get into that. We're still in 4 competitions. But the process of selecting Martin's replacement was excellent as far as Andrew Cavenagh is concerned. It's more complex than we can know. It's not a kind of presentation with a bow on it. It was another wee phrase he came out being a bit sarcastic. But there was 5 candidates, all acceptable and standard, were simultaneously being interviewed and negotiated with. And he thought he was really proud of his team. Thelwell and Stewart. And he acknowledged they'd made mistakes, and he would quickly say, I've made mistakes as well. But I believe that these are the guys for the job. He was sticking by them. And he said that the confidentiality prevents deeper kind of explanation of what went on in the various negotiations that we're having with various candidates. But it was nothing to do with Thelwell that we didn't get Gerrard or Muscat. It was about timing. And Danny Röhl is not third choice. And if you get 5 simultaneous choices, well, they can't be. So it was quite clever, quite semantic-y. On players, it was an admission that the left-back role, and that's a wee criticism, I think, of Thelwell, who I feel tried to kind of plaster that up after the transfer window in the summer closed, and we were left with just young Magoma covering at left-back, having got rid of Hefty and having got rid of Yilmaz as well. I think he was saying, well, we've got Derek Cornelius who can play in the left-hand side and blah. You know, whereas Andrew Cavenagh came in yesterday and just said, we've not got enough cover at left-back. Mistakes have been made in the players that we've bought in. But he's saying it wasn't going to get solved in one transfer window. It's an ongoing process. And the criticism for Chermiti, who's been lined up as to Thelwell what Tor Andre Flo, talking of Norway, was to David Murray, but isn't for all sorts of reasons. Mostly because Tor Andre Flo scored a lot of goals for us. Chermiti, I thought it was a really good argument on why we spent, was it 8 to 9 million or 8 to 10 million it's going to be on Youssef Chermiti, who's not scored a first team goal yet, I don't think, in Britain. The lad, I think he did show signs against Sturm Graz, albeit a terrible night for Rangers generally. In our last Europa League outing, I thought he looked like raw talent. He looked like a prospect then. In the physical aspect, they kept emphasising that number 9, centre forwards. Cavenagh was talking about this as well, and I'm just too old now to ever get over the thrill I get, and it's a pathetic, almost kind of racist stereotype of hearing Americans talk about football, talk about soccer. You know, I'll watch MLS games, whatever, on whatever channel you can find them on, and I just love listening to it. It's that whole thing about it's, you know, the same language separated by an ocean or something like that, divided by an ocean. They are talking about soccer, they are talking about football, but they're different, you know. With the 1-1 goal, you know, 35 miles per hour strike from the end of the D. It's a different way, and he's talking about it. It was quite funny. But hearing Andrew Cavenagh, was he a goalie or something? He's played a bit of football. Maybe it's bullshit. I don't know. But he was talking about number 9s. 9s are the most expensive players in the market just now. The way football is going just now, you need big physical centre forwards. We've got one. He's, you know, the stats tell us he's the strongest guy in the team physically. And to have that in a centre forward is, you could be spending £90 million, £90 million in a centre forward these days. So we're going to sell him on for a profit. It's data analytics, and this is, if you look at what's happening to Hearts, the one thing you should take from it is it Jonestown or Jamestown. I'm thinking the Brian Jonestown massacre. It's James. Was it James? Was the guy that did the actual? Was it Jones? Jim Jones? Maybe it's Jamestown Analytics. It must be. It's analytics. You know, the Tony Bloom's analytics company that are doing the business at Hearts as well. So this is what we want. We want to move with the times. We want to have the best of stuff, the best way. And we were told this when they took over, they're going to use data analysis, and Chermiti is hitting all the stats. I feel as if, like everybody else, one message that was coming through, I think loud and clear, was that we can't criticise any of the players over the first 2 or 3 months at this club because they're admitting Russell Martin was shite. So nobody's got the best out of themselves under the previous head coach. But I'm quite looking forward to seeing Chermiti getting another chance. He told Manny Fernandez is injured, so that's cool. And I think it was Stevie Clifford was making that point today on Rangers Review about how if that's why yesterday's probably leaving, without my cynicism, that's why yesterday's leaving a lot of fan media and journalists feeling more encouraged, because talking helps. It is good to talk. Just you're asking questions that get cleared up. None of us knew that Manny Fernandez was injured, and you're thinking we've spent, was it 2.5 million or something in this fella for Peterborough, and he's not getting a game. He's not even in. He's in the stand. Turns out he's injured, so that's fine. And I always look at it as, when it comes to the Chermiti thing, yeah, maybe it looks like we've spent too much money on him. The idea is you'll be selling him for 20 or 30 million if he has even a good 6 months at Rangers. JD Gassama, we're constantly told, and it looks like at times he's a £20 million player, and we've got him for 2.5. So it works both ways. That's a success, I think. Andrew Cavenagh was impressive, but I feel that it's a bit like Tommy Como, and I was talking earlier about Raging Bull. It's that thing of, you're not going to get the title fight. You're not going to get a shot at the title. Not without us, you're not. I feel as if it was a real, the media pack yesterday, it was a real kind of, we're here to slaughter you. The same way like Jake LaMotta's got to take a dive. He's got to take a dive and kind of ruin his idea of having a perfect career. He's got to kind of knock himself out in a fight. He doesn't do it very well either. He's got to chuck a fight before he'll get a chance to go on and to go on to glory. And I felt as if there's a kind of almost mobsterish attitude at times where it's like, yeah, we'll get £1 of flesh at you. You ain't going to come along here and just transform everything. Like every Rangers supporter wants you to. No, without going through us, we're going to need to know we can. And we got one answers yesterday. We got the £1 of flesh. We got to rip into these guys. So now you can go on and we can all be. It's just funny. It's Cavenagh and Marathe that employ Thelwell and Patrick Stewart, but Kevin Thelwell, he had his facts in order, and he was good on the appointment of his son, putting it all on to Dan Purdy and all that. But he came across as quite self-effacing. The 25-8 thing, as Derek was saying yesterday in Rangers Review, no, that's just never want to hear that again. I think he could have come out of it a bit better. This thing he said about, I thought it was a bit out of order. Actually, he was asked about a legitimate question. People are concerned that Danny Röhl is just another Russell Martin, and he said this thing about, well, yeah, he's got was it black hair? He's got dark hair and a beard, and he's quite young. He's like Russell Martin that way. And that's no good. Maybe doesn't. I don't know who it was. It was asking. Was it the boy for Daily Record? I can't remember. I've not got a lot of time for Daily Record, but at the same time, they're in there. The one thing about Daily Record is they get the stories. They will tell you what's happening. Maybe they'll tell you stuff that's not happening as well. But they will be in there and they'll tell you stuff that's happening. There's people that do go to Daily Record, and I think that the whole thing. I said this with Russell Martin as well. I think sometimes Rangers people at these press conferences might forget they're just seeing the press pack in front of them, or the people who are asking the questions, but they don't realise that we're not really. Us on the outside, we're just watching their answers. Sometimes I will notice, I think particularly when Tom English was having a go at Russell Martin, I thought he was fucking well out of order. This kind of ambulance chasing. But I will notice sometimes when people are asking weird questions or they're out of order in the way they ask questions, but generally you will just see them. You don't see the press folk, they're talking to you. These guys are just prompting questions that the Rangers supporters might want to hear. And I thought his answer yesterday was a bit sarcastic. It came across really badly, that one. But generally, I thought he did okay. I don't know if he's going to step up. I don't know if it's him trying to get a bit more ballsy. I've thought the general manager, the sporting director model, a bit like the kind of German general manager thing. Is he going to be a kind of Karl-Heinz Rummenigge or a Dieter Hoeneß? Not an Uli Hoeneß, because he's going to end up going to jail for tax evasion. But is he going to kind of step up and take on a bit more of the flack from the press on a regular basis? Because I think this has worked well. I think there's been a kind of clear the air aspect to this. But I don't know if he was trying to do that, but we'll find out. Patrick Stewart, we're going for him. That's it. He's got to go. It's him we want first, apparently. because he sounds weak. He's not like a true leader. This sort of stuff I've been hearing. He sounds a bit weird. You know, he's bald. He's a bit geeky. I saw somebody a tweet today saying, I even hate the way he walks. No, there's a photograph of Patrick Stewart as he's leaving Ibrox. Just kind of the way you take a photograph of anybody mid-walk. They're going to look a bit weird. It's just getting out of hand. He's got to be the sacrificial lamb. We just need to... It's Tony Blair versus Gordon Brown all over again. It's like we don't like the fact he's got a kind of weird a weird voice like Mick Jagger, a weird voice like Simon Sharma, a weird voice like Rick Stein. These guys have all got weird kind of tremulous little voices and their massive successes in their field. I want our CEO to be a bit geeky. I want him to be a bit studious. He's bald. He's no very big. He's got the big specs. He's got a kind of lilting light Aberdeen accent. No, don't want that. He's got to go. He's responsible, whatever. And it's this whole thing of like, Gordon Brown. Oh, he comes across like an accountant, like he's too serious. He doesn't smile enough. Middle of a fucking world economic crash. Don't want him smiling. We want somebody who knows how to count. We want somebody who's serious, who takes responsibility. It's the stuff that goes on. Remember Andy Murray had to cry before he was allowed to have the British public behind him. He had to cry for us. And then it shows you're human, they said inhumanly. You know, as if greeting is any sign of any great humanity. I do it all the time. A pound of flesh needed, and it seems to be Per Patrick Stewart that's going to get... Maybe Patrick Stewart is completely useless. He's completely garbage, but the witch hunt Pish is what leads to kind of Charles Green getting control of the club because he was wearing the club tie. He uses the first person plural pronoun, and he claims we're in the third division because of sectarianism. He does the job, but he doesn't, Patrick Stewart, and I think he should. He's been there. It's not even a year, and what a year it has been. These guys have just taken the club over in June, and I thought, like, why are you not being more enthusiastic? Because I'm so deep. It's like the start of the game against Borussia Dortmund in the Westfalen. Like, we're 1-0 up, okay, and we're playing absolutely brilliantly. But okay, this is Borussia Dortmund in the Westfalen. This could be okay. We're 2-0 up. This could be the greatest night of my life. This could be the greatest Rangers performance of all time. But let's just no get ourselves, and then we banged in the third, and I went completely mental. I had to pull myself off the ceiling, basically pull myself off as well. It was unreal, and then Borussia Dortmund started getting involved in the goals almost to punish me for losing my shit. It was one of the moments where it's so on the cusp of being perfect that you don't want to go too early. That's what I was like when these guys took over. Apart from the usual, as I say, the one thing about Marathe and Cavenagh is when and how are they going to leave us? And that'll always be there. But at this moment in time, the main thing, I wanted to just kind of digest that to let me fully enjoy the glory that they're inevitably going to bring. And I was also fully aware that it couldn't go smoothly. There's so much work required at Rangers still to get us to that point transformatively. Graham Souness getting sent off at Easter Road in his first competitive game. I was talking the other night about Dick Advocat losing his first 3-0 down to an Irish side in his first European game, losing his first league game. It hurts treble, double. You know, it's the same. So this is that on a bigger scale. Lawrence Marlborough, we took over quietly. It wasn't a big deal. It was reported in the Rangers News and stuff like that. Was in the Daily Records. Lawrence Marlborough's taken over, but it was, David Holmes comes in, but it was Jock Wallace. It was a terrible season, 85-86. As soon as arrives, bang, okay, and even then we still had a few ricks that getting put out of the Scottish Cup by Hamilton Accies. Never winning the Scottish Cup under Graham Souness. Plenty of things still went wrong. Even in our greatest periods, it takes a while to get fully going. I knew that was going to happen. I knew there's going to be problems, and I knew we would. There's such a culture now of mountain campaigns of this. The players should have been allowed to get on the bus and go home. It's the whole thing with the Union Bears on Saturday. I love the Union Bears. They keep Ibrox going. They really do. And some of the tifos are some of the most emotional things I've ever seen in my life as a Rangers supporter. But that one on Saturday where it's like face your failures like men. I don't really know what else they can do. They keep coming out the park to play. It's like it's getting too much. It's like you can't hide on the bus. They're not hiding on the bus. I try to get home. It's you that's stopping them getting on the bus. It just felt it was. So SK Brann Flakes of Norway, the champions of Norway in 1962, 1963, 2007. I think Rosenborg have been champions of Norway 26 times. Something like 23, 26 times, 29 times. Rosenborg far and away, just ridiculous. I think everybody else is just single figures. Leo Strom and Viking Stavanger and all that. I think they're probably just the Bodo Glimt. I think they're on 3 or 4 titles. They're the team in the moment just now in Norway. Bodo Glimt. I think they won 3 or 4 out of the last 5 or 6 titles, 3 or 4 of the titles in the 2020s anyway. But I don't know how we're going to get on in this game at all. They're 17th in the Europa League group after 2 games. We are 32nd, so they've got 1 win, 1 defeat. We've got 2 defeats. It's pretty bad for us, but we could turn it all around with a win. And this one, I don't know if it's going to be. Thilo Asgard, maybe he absolutely hates Brann Bergen. Maybe he's. I'd heard that documentary was talking about the Battle of Largs. Is it 1263 or something like the Battle of Largs where we beat the Vikings? It was saying that Bergen, it was quicker to get to Scotland. I don't know if it's Orkney or whatever. It's quicker to get to Scotland for Bergen than it is to get to Oslo. Maybe it was just by a long ship. I don't know, but is that still the case? I don't know. It's kind of Aberdeen away type scenario in this game. We have played 2 previous Norwegian clubs in Europe, and we haven't conceded a goal. We beat Lillestrøm in the preliminary round of the 1979-80 Cup Winners' Cup, where we were then going to beat Fortuna Dusseldorf, who were the finalists the previous season, and we got to Mario Kempes in Valencia after getting a wee draw in Mestalla in that one. But in the preliminary round, we beat Lillestrøm of Norway, the first time we'd faced Norwegian opposition. We beat them 2-0 away, we beat them 1-0 at home, 3-0 in aggregate, that is, for the mathematicians out there. And then in the 2006-2007 Uefa Cup, the very first European game that Paul Le Guen played as Rangers manager was a 0-0 draw in Norway against Molde. It was an awful game, it really was. And then we beat them 2-0 at Ibrox. I was at that one. Thomas Buffo and Barry Ferguson. And that's it. So we're not considered a goal against Norwegian opposition. We've had 4 games, 1-3. Drew 1, and we put them out of Europe. But that was the old knockout kind of system. That was the game. It's effectively a playoff game under Paul Le Guen back in 2006-2007, which got us into the 5-team group stage of the UEFA Cup as it was then. So this is only our 5th match against Norwegian opposition. What do you think? What do you think about Norway, the Norwegian national team? 3 World Cups, the 2 France 98, France 38. And USA 94, Scotland, the last team that didn't beat Scotland at the World Cup was Norway. We drew 1 each with them in Bordeaux. Craig Burley scoring for Scotland. Was it Torandre Flo's cousin? I think that scored the goal. I'm not sure who scored for Norway. But it was 1 each draw over there, but they never did anything great in the international stage. Norway, it's their players. They've got Erling Haaland. But yet Scotland put them at the last Euros. We beat them. He had 2 last-minute goals over in Oslo. Quite a thing. Not got a great record in the Norwegian national team, despite the riches of the country itself. Maybe Thilo Asgard's family are all massive Lynn Oslo fans or something like that, and he's brought up to absolutely hate Brann Bergen. He's going to go to them tomorrow night and just cut loose. Are they doing that thing where they're all like, oh my God, it's the guy that scored 4 goals for the Norwegian national team? That stupid idea you get that clubs for a certain country are going to love any player for that country, and then you realise it's just like, if Callum McGregor was playing for Roma and he comes to Ibrox, we're going to hate him. It's even more so because he's Scottish. It's like that. Maybe they're Odd Grenland to the core. I used to be Odd Grenland. They're not Odd Grenland anymore. They're back to just being called Odd. But Odd Grenland did the worst ratings at my single season of playing FIFA. I realised I can't do it. I couldn't do it. I could do it. That was a problem. But when I get beat or when I lost a goal, I was bouncing the remote controls. I had to replace the remote controls every 2 seconds. That was in the flat of Willie Waddle's old flat. I used to be Odd Grenland had the worst ratings that were set in, so that once I'd kind of go to Hodder how to play it, and then I would win Serie A with like Inter or something like that. Or I was Real Madrid for a while, Rangers in Scotland and that kind of thing. I think I'd won everything, the treble in the European Cup with Rangers. I set myself a challenge of Odd Grenland was the worst team I could find, and I played against Brann. But SK Brann, it's their badge is beautiful, just Brann, but in a wee it looks like a petrol station logo. Very oil-rich country, Norway, but maybe I used to have a fantasy where it was Torino. I would play for Torino. Obviously, I did that thing. I grew up and I wanted to play for Rangers, and all my fantasies playing football at the back door. I'd be scoring against Celtic at Hampden or Parkhead, Ibrox, whatever. I'd always be scoring in cup finals, and then I would graduate. I would get a bit more. I would be scoring against Liverpool at Anfield for Rangers in the European Cup, scoring into the Kop, because I knew that was when I was growing up, Liverpool were the top team in Europe. as well. But as I got a bit older and I was just kind of, it was more like fantasy as I was walking for the bus and I had to go to my work, I started developing this thing where I was playing for the Torino team in the kind of late 80s, early 90s, and I wanted to go to the 1992 UEFA Cup final, kind of Walter Casagrande and Gigi Lentini, and he's kind of, I would be playing alongside them, and I'd be, I'd be Scottish, and we'd get Celtic in the UEFA Cup. That's just the weird. I think it was. I felt somehow it was like it made me more interesting, or it was even more of. It would be like, oh, the Parkhead crowd, a Scotsman that plays for Torino. We don't really know anything about him, and how's he going to play? And there would be a video, end of season video for Torino, and they'd be interviewing all the players and be going, oh, we just thought it was a straightforward UEFA Cup game, and Alec would be glad to be going back home. But he spent the whole week telling us we've got to do these. We've got to cup. And when we were 3-0 up and he'd scored the hat trick, he was like, no, more. We didn't know why he kept running up to the bit with the Celtic supporters, the jungle, I think they called it, every time he scored the goal. I just felt as if it was more interesting to do that. Maybe Thelo Asgard has grown up fantasising about absolutely pounding SK Brann. That would definitely help us. Tor Andre Flo, Norway, a totem for us, a totem pole. To David Murray's kind of, when it started, he was in the downslope. It was always them. Oh, he paid stupid money for Tor Andre Flo. Maybe Chermiti is going to be the same thing for Thelwell, but Tor Andre Flo scored a lot of goals. He always scored a lot of braces. He scored in his Old Firm debut as well, a 5-1 win. He couldn't get off to a better start, really. Maybe it wasn't worth that amount, but he was certainly worth something. It would always be, with 1-3-1, 2 goals for Tor Andre Flo. I think get one hat trick for us, but Bodo Glimt, they got to last season's Europa League semi-final against Spurs. They lost to Spurs, the eventual winners, and they were the first Norwegian team ever to reach a European semi-final. Brann, it's fair to say, don't have a great European history. They haven't played in the group stage of European football for this is the first time in about 18 years. Their manager is Freyr Alex Anderson, so that's my name's Alec Anderson. Their manager's name is Alex. I say Alec, but I write it with an X. No, it's just like Sir Alex Ferguson, because I'm basically the same kind of standard of football knowledge. But Freyr Alex Anderson is Icelandic, and he's a former manager of the Icelandic women's team. They finished second last season. It's a summer league, a summer season. Makes you think of Cannonball at Blackpool. It's a summer season in Norway, and they're 3 points behind Bodo Glimt just now. There's 6 games to play for in the league, in the elite Syrian for SK Brann. Last season they finished 3 points. Last season they finished 3 points behind Bodo Glimt. That was even second place, which meant they qualified for the Champions League second qualifying round. So this season they met RB Salzburg, they met Red Bull Salzburg in that Champions League second qualifying round, and they get gubbed 4-1 at home. They drew 1 each in Salzburg in the second leg, which meant they dropped into the third qualifying round of the Europa League, where they played BK Häcken of Sweden. They won 2-0 in Sweden, but they lost 1-0 at home. But through they went to the playoff round of the Champions League, and they beat AEK Larnaca 2-1 in Bergen, and then thrashed them 4-0 in Cyprus. So it's quite interesting scores they're getting in Europe so far. And that was them. They dropped into the group stage, and they played Lille. Match day 1, when we were losing to Genk, they were playing Lille, and they lost 2-1 in Lille. Ligue 1, great side Lille. They lost 2-1 to them, but they played so well. I saw the highlights of that. They hit the bar and they hit the post. Eventually Lille did as well. Hamza Igaman, who scored his first goals in last season's Europa League group stage. He scored them in a Ligue 1 stadium as well. The 2 he scored against Nice in the Côte d'Azur, but this was him playing for Lille now, of course. Hamza, no problem with his leg that night, able to play. He scored, he ends up tapping it in the 54th minute, opens the scoring after Brann had missed a wheen of chances. They'd headers just over the bar, so they hit the bar, they hit the post. They were creating great chances for themselves, but it's Lille that scored first. But they got up the park about 6 minutes later and they equalise. A lovely goal in off the post to Brann Bergen, but then Olivier Giroud. So it's Hamza Igaman and Olivier Giroud, 2 players you've heard of. 39-year-old Olivier Giroud in the 80th minute, a towering header at the back post. It scores the winner. But they really made a great account of themselves that night, and then they beat Utrecht 1-0 at home in their next game, the match day 2. So that's them on 3 points. This is difficult. I thought, looking at it on paper, Norwegian side, it's not Bodo Glimt. This is a team we should be beating, but it looks like quite an atmosphere as well. At the stadium holds about 17,500. It's going to be packed. You're looking at a kind of Michelin, Sturm Graz type of scenario in terms of the stadium, in terms of the atmosphere. It's going to be intense enough for us. Their fans are going to be up for it. So, they've got an Icelandic kind of wide player, also striker, 25 years old, wears number 22, Sævar Atle Magnusson. Now, he scored both their goals in the group stage so far, away to Lille, at home to Utrecht of the Eredivisie. He scored, and I think he scored 3 goals in the qualifying rounds as well, including both their goals against Häcken in Sweden. So he's the guy to watch. He's been banging them in the league for them as well. They just signed him from Lyngby for this season. I say they've got 6 games to go just in the league this season. They're currently, I think, 5 points behind Bodo Glimt. They're third just now, Brann, and Bodo Glimt are second. I think they're 5 points behind them, and they're 6 points behind Viking Stavanger or Brann. But the Bodo and Brann have got a game in hand on Viking Stavanger. But it looks like Bodo Glimt are the best place probably to win the league. I don't know, but they beat, who was it, Haggisland or something like that on Saturday. They beat them 4-1 at home, and they're away to Rosenborg on Sunday. So I don't know. It's depends what their focus is going to be, but I imagine that they're quite looking forward to this game. It's a team that are at the end of their season. The Norwegian season ends in December, against a team who hopefully have got a bit of new manager bounce, but it won't take a lot, as we saw from Dundee United on Saturday, to put us off our stride. Who will be the former Rangers player to get the Chris Powell role? Now, Danny Röhl had Chris Powell with him at Sheffield Wednesday, a former Sheffield Wednesday player, a guy who knew the club, who knew that league inside out to help him, and sure enough, he's looking for an ex-Rangers player. He mentioned this on Tuesday night, did Danny Röhl. He's looking for an ex-Rangers player to come in that knows the league to help him out. I don't know, maybe maybe he's already been appointed. I've not been watching the rumour mill today. I've been too busy watching all the bloody videos that Rangers are putting out of press conferences. But he's already got 2 German coaches in, as promised. He had a nice wee quip about Sal Bibo as well. I've already got my old goalkeeping coach, because we got Sal Bibo from Sheffield Wednesday, didn't we? But his assistant coach is going to be 40-year-old Matthias Kaltenbach. He was assistant coach at Hoffenheim in the Bundesliga for about 6 years, and he was working with Julian Nagelsmann, then the current boss of the German national team, and then he was assistant at Ajax for a while, was Matthias Kaltenbach. He's 40, and his first team performance manager is 50-year-old Sascha Lenze. He's the father-in-law of Timo Werner. He's from Hesse, the Hesse area. He's played for all the teams in there, Darmstadt and Eintracht Frankfurt, FSV Frankfurt, like at a youth level for most of them when he was coming through. He's played for Zwickau as well, but I think he was here like a decade before Danny Röhl played for him in East Germany. He's also played for Dynamo Dresden, a smaller club in Dresden. He was a sports psychologist, was Sascha Lenze, under Ralf Rangnick at RB Leipzig, and also when Ralf Rangnick was interim at Man U. So he worked with Röhl at Sheffield Wednesday. The Red Bull is very strong within this staff. And Red Bull, of course, is very strong within Leeds United, where their vice chairman is chairman. But these guys have got great experience. They've got really great experience. That's something that was touched on in tonight's pre-match presser over in Norway. Danny Röhl come across as just buzzing, cheeky, wearing the hoodie, looking like he's absolutely loving it. As a breath of fresh air. Tomorrow, he said, we'll not make the perfect game tomorrow, meaning Thursday, but that's not important. Mumble, something about the Pope and no surrender and Union Jacks and stuff like that. Just getting these fish-eating wahoos absolutely pumped. It was good stuff. It was getting me in the mood. It's been nice seeing the players smiling again. He was saying, so it's because he watched training, I think, on Tuesday, and he took training with his 2 new German assistants, or old German assistants. He knows these guys. He took training with them at Auchenhowie on Wednesday, and obviously they've been having light training on the the Norwegian pitch, I would imagine, on Wednesday evening. So he's lifting their mood already if they're getting a bit of smile on their face. It's not just a bit talking. It's his last 2 days, it's just a lot of talking. I think he's obviously sick of the pressures. He wants to get into doing the actual game itself. He's just feeling I'm doing a lot of chatting. I think he's scared he's going to come across as somebody who talks a good game, but he wants to do the game. And he was asked about his big part in Bayern's 2020 Champions League win where they beat PSG. And it was in the Stadium of Light, wasn't it? It was in the Stadio de Luz, wasn't it? That's when they had that kind of mini tournament. It was during COVID. There was no punters there. He talked about, and he did talk about it, but I think realising that he might come across as if he's super confident. He just went straight into talking about the fact that they lost 5-1 to Eintracht Frankfurt in his first game as assistant on the coaching team there at Bayern, and then they had another European game after that. Then they were away to Borussia Dortmund, I think, after that in the Der Klassiker. So he was just emphasising the fact that it comes at you really fast. The game, you've got to be ready, and that's what he's wanting the Rangers players to be just now. They're going to have to get going ASAP in this game in Norway, and then again on Sunday against Kilmarnock. He went from third assistant manager to first assistant manager between October 2019 and May of 2020, June 2020, the time when Bayern were hoovering up the trophies that season. But he quickly changes the topic to how you need to work hard as a team, no matter how much talent it's got. That Bayern team is full of world-class stars, obviously, but they had to work hard. They knew the power of working hard. So even when people are trying to get him to talk about the good old days, and what is the class teams he's worked with, he's not having it. He's just talking about what he learned there that he can apply to Rangers, and it's down-to-earth stuff. He's been honest to us as fans watching this presser, and also the players themselves, by saying he's only had 2 days. He's only 2 days in the job. A lot of just going to watching videos of Rangers playing, so he can only deal with the basics. He's not going to overload the team with details, too many details. It may almost have been a direct go at Russell Martin, but he did mention briefly that it's a European game. As a European, so there's stuff they're going to have to take on board, which I would imagine will be the Brann Bergen's tactics. In possession, we need to speed up. Somebody asked him, but can you give us an idea of what it is you want to do? And this is where again, it sounds terrible from somebody like me who can barely speak English to criticise somebody. I'm not criticising him, obviously his English will get sharper as he's working here, but I couldn't quite make out what he was saying. I should have looked it up, it'll be down, somebody will have it down there, but he's in possession, we need to speed up. This is the areas he can improve us and how he's going to improve us, but in possession, we need to speed up, we need to get faster. And he said this thing, is it Silas? It sounded like saying Silas, like it was an anagram. It was a mnemonic, and was it 3 words? Sprint, intensity, and then it was something about going right over the ball, studs up, and letting these kind of pretend Vikings know that we kicked the shit out of them in Scotland in 1263 and they're no coming back. I don't know, it was something. I liked it anyway. It sounded good. It sounded enthusiastic. He sees a lot of good things in the squad. He says, i.e., potential. And he'll give solutions to the players who haven't been performing to the level. He'll give them solutions. He'll help the guys who haven't been performing to their level. And there was a great story about Gassama. Just the way his eyes lit up. He got asked about JD Gassama, having worked with him at Sheffield Wednesday, having basically made him the player he was at Sheffield Wednesday. And he was talking about the gas. He was calling him gas, and then he came up with a very Russell Martin line about how he likes to develop players on the field, but he also wants to help them as well as their technical skills at football. He wants to help them as human beings. He's not getting into the negativity of wondering what happens if they don't win a trophy. If Rangers don't win a trophy this season, somebody was going to ask them, try to put them under pressure. Kind negativity. Ich liebe. It was lovely. He handled it very professionally. And then some Norwegian guy asked him how much of a beamer it was for a huge club like Rangers, that Brann Bergen were the bookies' favourites for this game. And he said, well, they've won a game in this Europa League this season, and we haven't. So it makes perfect sense. And sometimes it actually suits a team to be the underdogs. He might just as well have said to him, whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must remain silent. Oh God, tut mir leid. Tut mir wirklich leid.